Alright guys, in this video I'm going to introduce you to layers in Photoshop. Let's get started. So I've got a photo open here in Photoshop. Over here on the bottom right hand corner I have my layers panel open. This is where a lot of the magic happens in Photoshop and a lot of the great stuff. Just so you know, if your layers panel ever disappears, you can always come up here to the top of your screen and go to Window and choose layers, or you can just press F7 and that will bring that back for you. And we're going to talk about a couple different types of layers and what they allow us to do. So let's get going here. The first one is a new layer, and that's this button right here. And you can see when I click on this, what's going to happen is right above my background layer, it's going to create a new blank layer called layer 1. You can tell this is a blank layer because it has these white and gray boxes on it. That means that there's nothing on it. It's completely transparent. But what having this new layer does is it allows me to do things like come in here, and I don't know why you would want to do this, but I can scribble on my photo, or I could add weird shapes to it. And this basically just allows us to play around and do things in Photoshop without editing or altering our original photo. You can see, because I have two layers, all of my scribbling and doodling was done on layer 1, and nothing was done on my background layer. In fact, my background layer was left completely unedited, which is actually what you want when you're working in Photoshop. This is called non-destructive editing, meaning it edits your photos in a way that it does not make any permanent changes to them. You see no changes whatsoever been made to my original background layer, which is what I want. So these new layers are handy, but for the most part, it's not what we're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer by just clicking on layer 1 and pressing the delete key on my keyboard. Let's actually look at a different option, which is making a copy of our photo that we can edit and play around with. And we do that by duplicating our background layer or making a copy of it. And the keyboard shortcut for that is Control-J. And you can see when I press Control-J on my keyboard that made a copy of my background layer. In fact, you can tell because it doesn't have those white and gray boxes. It has another little preview of what the photo looks like. And what duplicating our background layer allows us to do is do things like levels. I'm going to do a little Control-L, and you can see now I'll just make this extreme so you can see it. Extreme levels and some saturation. And I'll do that extreme too so we can really see the difference. And look at everything that I just did is all done here on layer 1. My background layer is still in its original state. It has not been altered. And again, this is called non-destructive editing because it allows us to edit our photo without destroying or altering our original. So this is duplicating a background layer, and you really want to start getting into the habit of every time you open a photo to edit in Photoshop of duplicating that background layer. So those are the two main types of layers that we're going to be using in Photoshop. Let's talk about saving our photos that have more than one layer. You can see even though this photo is a JPEG file, it ends in .jpg, that stands for JPEG. When I go up and go to File, Save, Photoshop's going to say, hey, you've got multiple layers here, so you probably don't want to save this as a JPEG. In fact, it's going to suggest that I save it as a Photoshop or a PSD, Photoshop document is what that stands for. And a PSD file allows us to save our photo, and it also saves our layers, which means it saves all of our work for us and allows us to go back and make changes later. This is awesome because we can edit, again, non-destructively, and we can always make changes later on. It's not awesome because PSD files take up a ton of space, and you can't open them anywhere other than Photoshop. So you can't even upload a PSD file to Flickr. So what I like to do is I like to save my original work as a PSD by making sure the Save As type is a Photoshop and then hitting Save. And if you see this box pop up, just check on Don't Show Again, press OK because we don't need to see that. You see this little blue progress bar down here in the left-hand corner that shows us what's happening. Once that blue progress bar is gone, you can now come up here and go to File, Save As. And this time I'm going to change it from a Photoshop document to a JPEG. And a JPEG is handy because it's a much smaller file size. We can upload JPEGs to Flickr. But you'll see when I save this as a JPEG, it's going to smash my two layers together. So I lose all of my layers. Again, that's only on the JPEG file. Those layers still exist on the PSD. One other thing that I like to do is keep my edited JPEGs in their own folder, because image 9751 already exists in this folder, and if I try to save this, it's going to overwrite that one. So I'm going to make a new folder and call it Edits or Photoshop or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to come in here, and now I'm going to save this as a JPEG. And of course, whenever this box pops up, we just press OK. So that's how we work with the two basic types of layers in this class and how we save them. And that's it.